The ideology which buttresses same-sex marriage, in other words, a philosophy of the human being as one largely driven by material, physical impulse, has consequences not just for religious freedom, but for intellectual and professional freedom at large. What we find nowadays is that the professions are being honed in a philosophy which expresses this worldview to the exclusion of all other perspectives. It's well known that in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association determined that homosexuality was now a condition which was as normal as any other one. And instead of taking a view which was traditionally a compassionate view, a view which says here is a problem where people may need some assistance and this assistance should be offered in whatever way it can be, a new aggressive standpoint was taken whereby the human being now is seen formally as a kind of a polymorphous being, as a human being which can express itself in a whole diversity of sexualities, and this then became, in the course of decades, a orthodoxy, a regimented doctrine amongst all psychiatric and psychological associations, which disallowed essentially any other perspective in psychological and psychiatric practice. So that from now on, from this point of view, it became no longer professionally permissible for psychiatrists to take patients who wanted help out of this situation. And the whole view of the human being is now altered. No longer is the spiritual dimension recognized within the human being. The human being is someone determined by physical and psychic drives. It's also affected other professions, not only psychology, psychiatry, it's affected the social sciences. That now, for example, society is seen as in terms of a whole different kinds of as what's called identity politics. People are no longer viewed as taking any reference point in terms of the wider cultural, spiritual, ethical tradition which has formed and framed our society. It affects journalism, it affects lawyers, and so on and so forth. One ideology radiates out from the universities and from the professional associations which see the human being now as someone who is essentially determined by what they feel they want to be. And this leads to a negation of the whole traditional spiritual compass of Western civilization, which saw fundamental ethical parameters as framing social institutions, the family, community, society, and so on and so forth. An ideology has grown around this, and those who seek to question or to argue with these perspectives find intense suppression and rejection within the universities and within professional associations. It's only in the recent campaign over marriage that when the executives of these professional associations, whether it was the Lawyers Association of New South Wales, whether it was the Australian Medical Association, where the executives of this society sought to decree a standpoint on marriage which would bind the whole membership, that an upsurgence, that a revolt occurred within the ranks, and members of their professions began to show cracks in the facade of what had appeared to be a politically correct uniformity within the profession. So this movement has affected not only religious freedom, but intellectual freedom. And this is something which is extremely serious, because from the universities are staffed all of our professions, our teachers, our journalists, our psychiatrists, our social workers, our lawyers. And when they come out of the university and into their professional associations, steeped in this new view of the human being, that to the human being is no longer relevant the compass of traditional values, but rather the human being is a self-morphing person regulated only by their own desires, wishes and will, then we have a very dangerous roll-on consequence for the society as a whole. Intellectual inquiry with its spiritual dimension has been eliminated.